Welcome into the Wiltfong Whiparound with Steve Wiltfong. Today is Monday, April 21st. I'm your host, Josh Newberg, and this is going to be a loaded show because the transfer portal is booming, high school recruiting is booming. We had spring games over the weekend, lots of visits going on, and today we're going to break it all down. But first, guys, do me a favor and hit subscribe to the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube, the On3 Recruits channel. Speaking of greatest of all time, let's bring in Steve Wiltfong, national analyst here at On3, and we're going to start with a little transfer portal. And always, Portal Talk is brought to you by Teamworks Intelligence, every player, every metric, every advantage. All right, Steve, Nico Amaliava makes it official. He posts on Instagram that he is a UCLA Bruin, and almost in the same breath, current quarterback who just transferred in from App State, Joey Aguilar, hits the portal. So we got transfer quarterback dominoes moving. What are you hearing on the latest development with Joey Aguilar possibly leaving UCLA?
Well, first of all, I heard he was doing well at UCLA, impressing Deshaun Foster, Tino Sunseri, and that Bruins coaching staff. An opportunity to get Nico Iamaleava. Obviously too much for them to pass up, which puts Joey Aguilar back in the portal. Very capable quarterback that has thrown for nearly 7,000 yards over the last two seasons, 56 touchdowns. So he is a prolific passer that has played a lot of football over the course of his college career. Tennessee is a program that you look at instantly. They have an opening at the position, right? How wild would that be if Joey Aguilar ended up in Knoxville and put up better numbers than Nico in Westwood? He's certainly going to have a football team with more talent around him at Tennessee this fall. If he were to choose to go to be evolved, that's who Tennessee chooses to lock in on. Wake Forest, Tulane, those are programs that Pete Nakos is reporting for On3. Those are programs that seem to be mentioned with just about every quarterback. Syracuse is a school that's also in the quarterback market, so wouldn't be surprised if we see the Orange take a look at Joey Aguilar as well.
All right, let's stay on the quarterback position when it comes to the portal, and we'll talk Syracuse again. Notre Dame quarterback Steve Angeli is setting up a visit, and it looks like Syracuse is going to get the first one. Is this a good fit?
Yeah, we reported this morning that Syracuse will host Steve Angeli on Monday today as we record on campus. I think he'd be a good pickup for the Orange. You know, he did a nice job for Notre Dame in a backup role, earned his degree or will earn his degree in South Bend and be a graduate transfer to the school of his choice. And I think if Syracuse is on the gas, they'll be tough to beat for Steve Angeli, who obviously can look and see the success that Kyle McCord had in that offense. Coach Caponelli over there at Syracuse has ties to Angeli in his old high school. And so Syracuse is certainly a program to watch. And when he got on the field at Notre Dame, he played well, had nearly 800 yards passing in his career, 10 touchdowns to 1 interception, had the start in the bowl game 2 years ago against Oregon State and played well. And then obviously came in the college football semifinal late in the second quarter, led Notre Dame to some points on a pivotal drive against Penn State to help springboard them to a big second half and a win over the Nittany Lions to get into the national title game. He's a seasoned guy, someone that would add to anybody's culture. He's got some talent, and Syracuse is obviously intrigued by him and bringing him on campus.
All right, a little bit more of Syracuse news. Jonte Cook, the former 5-star recruit, Texas Longhorn, is also visiting Syracuse real soon. Let's stay on the wide receivers. BYU wide receiver Keelan Marion is a hot name. Steve, who is trending now that he's in the portal?
I think he's also exciting for his ability in the return game. I think that is intriguing for these college programs that are looking at him, and that starts with Arizona State. Kenny Dillingham and the Sun Devils are a program that I think is in good position to land Keelan Marion. SMU is in play. He will visit them later in the week after Arizona State, with Miami and Tennessee, two others that have him scheduled for visits and are on the short list for the former BYU pass catcher.
All right, wide receiver Nitro Tuggle is leaving Georgia, and you put in a prediction for him to land where?
at Purdue. He's on Purdue's campus right now. He's from Indiana, Northwood High School, chose Georgia over a national offer list, got on the field for the Bulldogs this past fall. He would be one of the top players in the room for Purdue if he ultimately chooses to go to West Lafayette. Indiana, Texas Tech, Syracuse, some of the other programs mentioned. And I like where Purdue stands with Tuggle.
All right, let's talk about one more transfer portal target, and it's another wide receiver. This one leaving Syracuse, Trevor Pena. He visited Penn State over the weekend. Steve, sometimes on these visits, if they don't commit on the visit or right after the visit, it means that recruitment's going to continue. Pena did not commit to Penn State. Are the Nittany Lions still in it, and what's next for him?
Yeah, still hearing good things about Penn State. Pete Nakos and I combining forces on that story. Trevor Pena becoming a household name. He had a really good season, Josh. 84 receptions for 941 yards and 7 touchdowns playing with Kyle McCord. But he's a household name now because of Fran Brown's quotes about not paying him $2 million. But he visited Penn State, had a good visit. I think the Nittany Lions are in the thick of it. Pete Nakos mentioned Miami as another potential Sooner in the Trevor Pena sweepstakes. So we'll see. But I think Penn State really showed him an opportunity that's advantageous with what they have coming back on offense. And it's up to these other schools to kind of trump what he saw at Penn State this week.
All right. Other major note was David Stone returning to Oklahoma. He finalized that on Sunday evening. If you guys missed out, that's pretty much the biggest developments from the portal. So you guys talked to Steve and I. How do you think this spring portal window is going? Is your team addressing needs? Who's the best player available? Let us know. Let's talk Ohio State Buckeye recruiting, because Ohio State is trending for more top targets after another busy visit weekend in Columbus. Defensive lineman P.J. Dean, that's who I want to ask you about, Steve. He's from North Carolina, and it seems like Ohio State's really doing well in this recruitment.
Yeah, I went back and looked at previous conversations I've had with P.J. Dean in the notes, and he's been mentioning Ohio State as a top school of his going back to May of last year. He's been consistent with Georgia and South Carolina in that regard as well. But there was time where it looked like he was one of the top offensive line recruits in the country, but he is focusing on the defensive side. And I think that is ramping things up for the Buckeyes coming off a recent visit to Columbus. You know, the pedigree at the position, the caliber of play, Larry Johnson, what Ohio State's offering on and off the field. Talking to sources with knowledge of the recruitment, they have become the program to beat for P.J. Dean. Georgia, South Carolina still involved. He took a recent visit to the Gamecocks campus as well, and they're full speed ahead on P.J. Dean. But I like where Ohio State stands, and that's why I changed my on-3 RPM from Georgia to Ohio State.
All right, Steve, who else are the Buckeyes trending for on the recruiting trail?
Well, there's quite a few targets out there that Ohio State could land as they push for the number 1 recruiting class in the country. They currently sit at number 4. Obviously, I like where they stand with on-3 industry, on 300 4-star running back Favor Key. I think that 4-star receiver Caden Dixon-Wyatt from Matter Day is closing on a decision. I think we'll know something from him over the next few weeks. And Ohio State and Oregon are the top 2, with USC pushing those programs. A couple more elite guys that I think Ohio State is very much at the forefront of their recruitments. The number 1 linebacker in the land per the on-3 industry, Tyler Atkinson, and a couple more running backs, Savion Hyder, the number 1 running back in the land, and Derek Cooper, a top 3 player at the position per the on-3 industry. Ohio State is at or near the top of the list for both. A lot of Michigan buzz around Hyder coming into the spring. He's going to take his official visits to Michigan, Georgia, Tennessee, and Ohio State, but his spring visit to Ohio State really moved the needle, I'm told. And then Derek Cooper, I really love Georgia's position, but I think his visit to Ohio State a couple weeks ago put them right there with the Bulldogs. Carson Baker, I have an on-3 RPM in favor of Ohio State for that 4-star running back out of Georgia. So Carlos Lachlan, Ryan Day and company, they're tracking for some really good players in the backfield, and they need it as they're aiming to reload after losing Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins this year. They have a really young running back room coming back, and whoever they sign in 2026 will be counted in to come in and push those guys right away. This year's spring transfer portal window is sponsored by Teamworks Intelligence. Their mission is simple: more hits, fewer misses, and player evaluation. In the transfer portal era, data-driven recruiting isn't just an advantage, it's essential. Teamwork's intelligence empowers your program to navigate the transfer portal with precision while simultaneously elevating your game planning and self-scouting capabilities. The same advanced analytics platform trusted by NFL teams to make multi-million dollar personnel decisions is now available to elevate your college program's evaluation process. For athletic directors, general managers, and coaching staffs, Teamworks Intelligence delivers game changing efficiency by streamlining the evaluation process. Instead of spending countless hours reviewing film and traveling to scout prospects, your team can assess more players with greater accuracy in less time. This means maximize recruiting efforts within new budget constraints, giving you the competitive edge needed to build championship caliber programs. Don't just survive the portal era, dominate it with Teamworks Intelligence, the new standard in player evaluation.
Before we end this Ohio State talk, tell me about the offensive line. What's going on there?
Well, they're in on a couple 5-stars. Obviously, Jackson Cantwell, the number one player in the country, he's got a college commitment date of April 30th. And Ohio State's kind of been a program that's lingered in the back of the pack of favorites, but I think that they are swinging hard and showing Jackson what they could offer on and off the field as they make a final pitch. Coaches on the road, they went out to Nixa to make a case for him. A lot more buzz around Miami and Oregon and Georgia, but Ohio State still seeing what they can do in the Jackson Cantwell sweepstakes. And then Felix Ojo, the number 4 player in the country, number 3 offensive tackle in the land, the on-3 RPMs on Texas for the Lone Star State 5-star, but he took a recent visit to Ohio State. It was a great experience. He'll come back for his official this summer, and the Buckeyes remain the biggest threat to Texas for Felix Ojo.
Let's talk some Michigan Wolverines recruiting. Top prospects were on campus for the spring game, including one of their top quarterback targets, Brady Smigel. Now, there are some interesting developments over the weekend. Derek Zamet, he's a 4-star quarterback who committed to Washington. But, Steve, does this impact Smigel's recruitment?
Well, that domino certainly helps the Wolverines, as my on-3 RPM was on the Huskies for Brady Smigel coming into this Michigan trip. But he spent several days in Ann Arbor, and perhaps Michigan would have jumped Washington anyway. It was a great experience for Brady Smigel and his family. His father, Joe, who's also his head coach, told me the combination of academics and athletics at Michigan is unmatched. The Wolverines program checks a lot of boxes. I think we're going to know who Michigan's quarterback is in this class over the next week. Brady Smigel, Nathan Bernhard from Ohio. I have both of them predicted to the Wolverines right now. I think they're in pole position for both. Who's going to take that spot now? Who has that sense of urgency here to be Michigan's quarterback in the 2026 class? But Brady Smigel had a great visit at Michigan, spent multiple days on campus, highlighted by the spring game, got around Chip Lindsey and Coach Sharon Moore and that staff. They emphasized what a priority he is to their program this cycle, and he's someone that could come in and push Bryce Underwood. He's played a lot of football in high school, been a prolific passer out there for Newberry Park in California, and Michigan and South Carolina look like the two at the forefront, with UCLA also in the picture. But I like where Michigan stands. I like where Michigan stands with Nathan Bernhard. We'll see who takes that spot at the quarterback position for Michigan. I think we'll have that answer soon.
All right, good to know. All right, one of the top DBs out of the state of Georgia, Dorian Barney. We talk about him a lot on this channel. He was also in Ann Arbor for the game. What's the latest on his recruitment?
Well, Chad Simmons and I, we've liked where Texas A&M has stood for Dorian Barney in the last couple months, but he's now taken 2 visits to Michigan this spring. It's obvious that the Wolverines are rising up the list, and at the very least, giving the Aggies run for their money. He likes the opportunity, what Michigan presents on and off the field, the culture, the way they've developed defensive backs. And he had a great time at Michigan. So the Wolverines are a team to watch with Dorian Barney moving forward.
We've talked about running back Javian Osborne quite a bit over the last week. He's going to make that decision May 3rd, and Notre Dame and Michigan are the 2 teams involved. He was recently at Notre Dame over the weekend. He was at Michigan. But prior to this visit, you had already put in a prediction for Osborne to Notre Dame. How are you feeling about that pick now that Osborne has visited Michigan?
Yeah, at Notre Dame 2 weekends ago, Michigan this past weekend. I still like the Irish for JV and Osborne until someone tells me different. Talked to some sources about it on Monday morning, and it looks like it's still coming up ND as he dots the I's and crosses the T's on his recruiting process. But Michigan's in the thick of it for several other 2026 visitors this
Right.
weekend, Josh. You have Jeremy J.J. Finch, a touted defensive lineman from Indianapolis, Warren Central, Alabama, Tennessee, LSU, some of the other favorites, but Michigan and Notre Dame right there for Jeremy J.J. Finch, and he had a great visit to Ann Arbor. Matthew Canoe is an on 300 linebacker from Virginia that Penn State is the on 3 RPM favorite for, but the Wolverines are right there pushing Penn State at the very least. And then the number 4 cornerback in the on 3 player rankings, Kerry Adams, visited Michigan. He tells me he's looking to set up an official visit to see the Wolverines after this experience. Penn State's hosting them on Monday. They're a favorite. Notre Dame, LSU, South Carolina, Oregon, some of his other favorites. But Michigan made a move this weekend, and they're looking to get them back to campus this summer on an official.
Let's talk some Oregon Duck recruiting. The number 3 ranked class in the country. Oregon is moving the needle with some key targets, and they're looking for more. Steve, let's start with talking about top 5 corner Elbert Hill. He was back on campus. What are you hearing about his recruitment to Oregon?
Well, I'm hearing that Oregon's in the top 2 with USC, Alabama, and Ohio State rounding out the top 4 for Elbert Hill, the 4th out of Akron, Ohio. But Oregon has as good a chance as anybody. He got a chance to get back around the coaching staff, loves Dan Lanning and the trajectory of that football program, spent some time with former 5-star Trey McNutt, another Ohio native that chose the Ducks over Ohio State and Texas A&M and among others in the last cycle. And Elbert Hill could be Oregon's next big win in the Midwest in 2026.
All right, Steve, who else are the Ducks moving the needle with right now?
Well, they have a shot to finish number 1, Josh. They sit at number 3 in the on-3 industry standings, and some other big timers on campus this weekend included the number 2 cornerback in the on-3 rankings, Davon Benjamin. I still like my on-3 RPM in favor of Oregon. Sure, there's stiff competition from USC, Miami, Georgia, and Michigan, but he's always had a lot of love for Oregon and that staff and feels very comfortable in Eugene. I'm still riding with the Ducks for Davon Benjamin. It was a huge weekend in the secondary in general. 2 of the top safeties in the land, Jira Edwards from Baltimore St. Francis and Jet Washington from Las Vegas Bishop Gorman, returned to campus. Edwards has been there several times. He loves Oregon. He said the grass is damn green in Eugene, talking to him about his visit. He loves Coach Tosh Lupoy and that scheme and the way he fits in there. Oregon is definitely in great position for him. And then Jet Washington, he's always been high on Oregon. They've always been a front runner in his recruitment, and it was another really good visit. A couple prominent receivers on campus. Caden Dixon-Wyatt was back, 4-star from Mater Dei. He's been to Oregon a couple times this spring, spent time with new receivers coach Ross Douglas, got back around the program. He's also looking at Ohio State and USC, and I think his timeline moves up. He's got official visits set to these programs for the summer, Texas and Alabama included. But I think he comes off the board in the next few weeks. Ohio State and Oregon in a back-and-forth slobber knocker for Caden Dixon-Wyatt. And then Calvin Russell from Miami Northwestern was also out to visit. Syracuse has been one of his top schools. That's where new Oregon receivers coach Ross Douglas came from. That relationship's been a seamless transition to Eugene. Sounds like he had a really good visit to Oregon, and the Ducks now pushing for an official visit as they battle Georgia, Syracuse, Miami, among others, for Calvin Russell.
Before we're done talking Oregon, we got to check in on a couple 5-stars. Let's start with Jackson Cantwell, the 5-star offensive tackle, makes his decision in about 8 days from now. What is the latest with his decision?
This year's spring transfer portal window is sponsored by Teamworks Intelligence. Their mission is simple: more hits, fewer misses, and player evaluation. In the transfer portal era, data-driven recruiting isn't just an advantage, it's essential. Teamworks Intelligence empowers your program to navigate the transfer portal with precision while simultaneously elevating your game. planning, and self-scouting capabilities. The same advanced analytics platform trusted by NFL teams to make multi-million-dollar personnel decisions is now available to elevate your college program's evaluation process. For athletic directors, general managers, and coaching staffs, Teamworks Intelligence delivers game-changing efficiency by streamlining the evaluation process. Instead of spending countless hours reviewing film and traveling to scout prospects, your team can assess more players with greater accuracy in less time. This means maximize recruiting efforts within new budget constraints, giving you the competitive edge needed to build championship caliber programs. Don't just survive the portal era, dominate it with Teamworks Intelligence, the new standard in player evaluation. Well, as we said on last week's Wiltfong Whiparound, Miami's the program that has really been surging for Jackson Cantwell. With what Mario Cristobal has been able to do with first-year starters at the offensive line position over the course of his career, Jonah Williams at Alabama, Penei Sewell at Oregon, and then Francis Mauigoa at Miami, to name a few. That's appealing to Jackson Cantwell. Then certainly what the Hurricanes could potentially bring off the field from an NIL perspective, I think those packages are looking pretty strong to Jackson Cantwell at this point in his process. But dialogue continues with other programs. Ohio State's still swinging. He's always had a lot of love for Georgia and that program and the way they do things and that coaching staff. They're trying to hang around in that recruitment. But Oregon looks like the biggest challenger to Miami right now. He's coming back for his official visit this weekend with his family, wants to see them practice. We'll get to see the spring game, get back around the staff. Certainly there'll be some more NIL discussion, and we'll see where people put their cards on the table in that realm. We're talking about the number one player in the country, Jackson Cantwell. And so it'll be interesting to see what those offers look like. But Miami, I think, is the program with the momentum right now per several sources. Oregon remains one of the front runners with the final visit here this weekend, his official visit. And so it'll be interesting to see how some of those conversations go with Dan Lanning and that coaching staff.
All right, another 5-star, this one from the state of California, Brandon Arrington, the number 1 corner in the state, the number 2 player. We've had him trending to a bunch of different schools, but what's up with Arrington and Oregon?
Well, the visits that he takes, those have all been needle movers. And when he visited Oregon earlier this calendar year, the Ducks were the leader. And, he had a great visit to Alabama, loved the California pipeline in their secondary. A&M's been the front runner, and he was recently back over there. USC's really on the gas for Brandon Arrington. He's had some good visits with them for spring practice. He's having a terrific track season right now. Jackson Cantwell and Brandon Arrington. Jackson Cantwell is the best thrower in the country, shot put in disc. And then you got Brandon Arrington, one of the top sprinters in the land. Oregon's definitely a program I could see Brandon Arrington landing at. And Chad Simmons and I, in our intel scoop for the top 32 players in the country this morning, we wrote that we think the West Coast programs will ultimately have the edge for Brandon Arrington, which means that Oregon and USC are the 2 programs that we have the keenest eye on right now.
Recruitment has been a fun one. Now, we got to talk about number 1 quarterback, Jared Curtis. It's going to be either Georgia or Oregon, and he set his decision date. It's going to be May 5th. So, Steve, which color sombrero will Jared Curtis put on when he commits on Cinco de Mayo?
Well, I still think that Oregon is a program that he's super excited about with Dan Lanning, offensive coordinator Will Stein, the offense, multiple visits to Eugene, just feels very comfortable, thinks it's a place that he could be prolific. Oregon, what they offer on and off the field, it's all very exciting. Georgia's still hanging around. He's been committed to the Bulldogs, loves the type of players that they recruit, loves the program, the culture, Kirby Smart, Mike Bobo. Proximity to home is a big thing for Georgia. Proximity to family, a big thing for the Bulldogs at the end of the cycle. There has been a lot of times recently, or there's been some times recently where it looked like Jared Curtis was close to committing to Oregon. Georgia's the reasons why he hasn't done that. We'll see what it is in May. Was Georgia able to get the momentum back on their side, or does he ride with Oregon, the program that's probably led the most since he decommitted from the Bulldogs in the fall? Thanks for tuning into the Wiltfong Whiparound. Please hit like and subscribe to the On3 Recruits page so you're up to date on the best recruiting information on the platform. We will be back on Thursday to preview a final weekend of spring games and bring you the latest intel on the top recruits in the country. Have a great day.